To your question though, Randy, will blackness exist after the fall of white supremacy? I think yes. And I think it would exist for a particular subset of people, people who don't know their name otherwise.
My brilliant brothers, BMO, Sinclair.
What's happening?
Thank you for being here and doing a little bit of truthing with me. You know, I say truthing is when we tell our complete truths, because I feel like we can't do that in today's world. Society kind of muzzles us black people. Not y'all so much, but a lot of folks, okay? So I pick one of the truthing cards. I didn't know what I want to talk to you two about. And I ask a question and we just have like a free-flowing conversation about it, right? You tell your truth. So the first question I have, this sounds so basic, but what I have learned as I've asked this question is that it's not. What is black? What is black?
So, Sinclair, you want to start us off?
All right, humbly. I think it's just anybody of African descent. I think it's 1.5 billion people of African descent are black.
Okay.
I think that we deal with a thing called Afrophobia, and it's people who are being attacked because they're of African descent or perceived to be of African descent.
I think about blackness in two terms. I come from like an Africana studies framework. So like on one term, you have like the governance structure, how do other people look at us? That term of black, I have come to an understanding that term of black is kind of like any other caste system. It's the caste system of black is the lower class that the upper class can siphon resources from. That's a type of black. And I feel like when you're talking about Afrophobia, I'm running from that type of black. I don't want to be the resource drawn, parasitic. I don't want to be a part of that system. Right. But then there's the second tier, which is like the social structure. Who are we to each other? In which, in that case, I want to be black as hell. I want to be as black as possible because I'm looking at your hat right now and I see the Tuskegee Airmen. I see not only the legacy of black men in the military, but also see Mary McLeod Bethune and her relationship with Eleanor Roosevelt just right there on your hat. And I am a descendant directly of Mary McLeod Bethune. So I want to be as tied to that legacy of blackness as much as possible. But as far as like, you're black, you look black, I'm going to treat you black, you're black to the police, you're black in the government. You have a black product, which we can get a little deep on that. It's like, I don't know. I don't know if I want to be marginalized specifically in that arena, especially as an American, because to be black in America has always been trash.
So do you think that people kind of run towards and run away from being black at the same time? Because of how people define what it is?
Yeah, I think people do both. It depends. Like even with what we do with I Love Black People, with some of the folks in some of these movements, well, black is a color. I'm African,
right?
And they'll say that, which is still cool.
Yeah.
But if you go to Africa, no one calls themselves African like that. If I'm Shona, Zulu, Wolof, I'm actually telling you who I am, like to the point where you know what we do in our behavior type.
Right.
But what happens though, if you go to even there, the context of blackness and black is very clear because you have Europeans call themselves African.
Right.
And they're talking about, well, I'm South African. And now they start talking about I was born in Africa.
Right.
So again, I think they still aren't descendants of Africans. They really are colonizers that actually conquered and killed people. And now their children are trying to reap the benefits of it. And then they kind of put themselves, oh, I'm African. No.
Right.
Or if I'm in, my wife's Dominican, Dominican Republic, you say someone's African, they have no context of Africa. But if you say you black, they clear what you just said.
You clear what that means.
Peru, we met some like people, they say black folks eat gatos, cats there. They knew they was black. Now, if I had said you're African, they would have just been thought, that would have been like weird about that. But when
Right.
I say black, even though they have no historical, they're clear that that means something. If either it's something they're running away from or running to,
Right.
they literally.
Either way, they get what it means.
So for me, as a political construct, black is just a very simple tool to organize and mobilize around. And people say race is not real. Race isn't real. It's a construct.
Well, and that's
but
what everyone
racism
talks
is real.
about. It's a construct, but aren't constructs real?
No, they're
I
not.
mean-
Well, it's not based on science. I'm saying it's not scientific. Like we're
right.
literally all the same,
Right.
except for a couple of pieces. But racism is really real. Scientifically, we can actually trace what people do to folks,
Precisely.
and anywhere. Like
Right.
you have so-called, people in India bleaching, people in Asia bleaching.
Yes.
So the fact that people get that is what we're trying to protect as many black people from. So it's really like, even the folks who don't get it. Brothers broke down like the studies.
Right.
Like, I think everybody's at different places in it. So you end up getting folks.
What
like,
do you mean by different places? Like, do you think there's a journey to really discover?
There was
what
a time
blackness
when
is for
people would
you?
talk about octroon and quadroons. Like even
Right.
in the late '80s, folks who had the black medallions, folks would get, or if you were in the nation versus the Orthodox movement,
Right.
folks would get so weird with a conversation.
Right.
Yeah, no, same, but it's still happening now. Like, I don't know if you know, like brothers like Tariq Nasheed and his foundational Black American movement, which is the idea that we come from a certain section of blackness and we should be treated and respected above any other section of blackness. It's the same mindset. It's the idea that what we call black is actually an umbrella term for so many things. African is in there as well. Peruvian is in there as well. Afro-Caribbean, Black American. All those things are within this umbrella term of black. And I feel like as black folks, we can understand that. We went to HBCUs. We recognize that there's a diversity amongst blackness, and that's what's under that umbrella.
Yeah, but there's a lot of people fighting against that, which is why the question to me is so interesting, because I'm seeing so many people I used to follow religiously, black leaders, and they're saying, well, that person's not black. So when someone like, for instance, the vice president, right? There are a lot of people saying, stop calling that woman black. She is not a black woman. And so I'm like, that's why I asked the question, who is black, right? Even me doing Randi B, I've had people say, well, how do you have the audacity to do Randi B and really advocate for black people because you're not black just because I'm lighter skinned? And I'm like, that is so wild to me. And so I really thought like a fundamental question, even before we do a lot of stuff, is what is black? Because there seems to be a real argument within our our community about what black is.
Yeah, I think this is a distraction. So like even Tariq Nasheed. So we had, Tariq Nasheed came to Africa with us. We invited him. We actually were tying the struggle in Zimbabwe to the struggle that happened in Haiti. He just had a movie came out 1804. So we actually did a screening in Zimbabwe. And we were working with some black women farmers who were shown in the bellies, who literally, he supported it, did amazing stuff with them. His hidden colors was something that we used to help folks understand some of the connections. Because even the people that we're talking about, when we say Africa, we got to colonialism is a violent thing.
Violent.
So when we say that people run, like brothers was so great, people running from, there's a consequence. Capitalism, colonialism, anything of these things, they don't do it with just, people smiling. Behind that smile is the threat of imminent violence.
Yes.
So people don't want to die. We all want to go to heaven, but people don't want us to die. So I think a lot of this is not just they're just so gullible. I think there are real consequences, and people know those. They may not know the history. Like I'll even hear people talk about the difference between the Dominican Republic or Haiti or Haitian. The destruction of school systems, many people don't actually know. Even a Haitian may not even know when they got their freedom.
Right.
So they even say, oh, this is historical. I get you. Their real problem is that they have a colonizer less than 80 miles away. Named the United States government.
That is it.
So
what is interesting to me, exactly what you're saying now, when people are trying to separate themselves from blackness, right? I tell people it is survival. I mean, people are running away from a real violent threat. Yeah, right. So if you're living in a state of fear all of the time, right? And sadly, some people think that they can escape this blackness thing, which is why we talk about people dyeing their skin and all the things that happen in countries around the world. It's survival. It's a scary thing to be black if we're being honest about it. It's a wonderful thing, but it's a scary thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like since Martin Delaney and Frederick Douglass, there's always been a conversation about since post-freedom, if we're talking about in a enslaved context, since post-freedom, what are we going to do? Are we going to stay here and try to create a nation within ourselves, within this nation? Or are we out? Are we taking the Marcus Garvey way? Are we gone? Like, are we doing what Tina Turner did? Like, I found my popularity somewhere else. They appreciated me for my talent, so I'm going to live and die there.
That she was still black.
Of course she was still black.
She
Of
was
course
still
she was still
black
black. But there is a, and I guess this is the Afro-pessimistic part of it. There is a piece of me that says that you can escape black, that there has to be a pathway away from what, when I talk about that type of black, like the governance system of black, what people label you to be, that siphoned resource, lower caste system situation. My Afro-optimistic mind does not allow me to think that there is no escape from that position. Is there escape from culture? Is there escape from your skin tone and the people who look like you? Absolutely not. But is there an escape from being oppressed and marginalized by a system of people who call themselves white? I think so.
Yeah, I think one of the problems in the conversation, we end up starting in the middle. So it's hard to really understand, like, again, I'm not a social scientist, more applied science with engineering. Like, if you're going to actually analyze a problem, you should try to get to first principle. You try to get to the earliest part. And so when talking with black folks, wherever it is, I say, well, let's not start 50 years ago. Just be clear. We have primacy.
Yes.
So primacy doesn't mean we're better. It just means that we've been civilized human beings, and we've been actually doing it for quite some time.
Absolutely.
And because we've done it so long, it gives us certain skill sets. Now, if we look at our situation now, it's only been like this for less than 1,000 years, less than that, maybe 500 years. So what I think is clear is unsustainable. There was a book that Hugo Chavez gave Barack Obama before he was killed, called Open Veins of Latin America. And it talked about how colonialism underdeveloped the world, specifically South America. And it said the most useful part of a horse's body is their back. So that's why we relegate horses to beasts of burden. Well, the most useful, most powerful part of a human being's body, now before I got married, I thought it was the brain, but I think it's the heart. Someone said your brain didn't get you married, your heart did. But when you relegate human beings to beasts of burden, you just eliminated their most powerful attribute in the world. So how long has that been happening? It hasn't been happening since we were civilized. It's only happened in a very short period of time. And to be candid, I was at the Ukraine border last year in March. The Russians invaded, I think February 24th, maybe. I was there like March 7th. And so black folks, Africans, students that are part of our I Love Black People thing, they were fleeing and we were trying to help them. And our application helps you identify safe places. It's like a green book, right? So we were literally, but there was like Google forms that people had like put a bunch of places, but unless you had like a database that people could access. So we were trying to give them places they can leave Ukraine, even if they couldn't get directly home. We were in Poland, and most African countries don't have embassies in Ukraine or Poland, but they have them in Germany. So we helped them either get to Germany so they could go to another place. And let's be clear, they didn't go to Ukraine because they love Ukraine.
Right.
In order for them to immigrate to Europe, Eastern European countries had the easiest student visas.
Right.
So they would actually take classes, not in Ukrainian or Polish. The classes are actually in English. They finish the school. They can't, like a lot of them are nursing students, whatnot. They can't practice locally because they don't know the language. They would then apply to like England or someplace where they can then be like somebody's nurse care for some older European folks. So that was the reasons why they were there. And then we actually used what we were doing to try to get them out. But what I realized when I got there to Warsaw, I saw all these poor white folks on the floor. They kind of remind me of like, how, you know how you look at like the stereotype of a West Virginian, like the real pale, maybe
the
some roses.
Appalachian Mountain,
They were just scared. So when I kept seeing on CNN how they were saying how patriotic and how they were ready to fight, them folks had been planning their vacations. When that thing started, them folks was living regular lives. No one wanted to fight in a war. Like who wakes up, I can't wait till a superpower invades. So literally, what I realized though clearly is that when we say white supremacy ideology, because it's an ideology, must be destroyed, I realized then it's not us that's going to destroy it. That ideology is going to be destroyed by other Europeans. And it's unsustainable. Europe used to have wild animals. Guess what they did to them? They killed all of them. Like, if you think about the pollution, you think about everything that's been distorted in the world, it came from a colonial model that's doomed. So I think it's not about us trying to fight. I'm not going to try to out-European or out-colonize a colonizer. I think they're going to end this thing. The question is, what are we going to replace this thing that they end with? Is it going to have justice in it? Is it going to have equality?
Right.
So I don't think I have no pessimism. I'm clear, whatever God there may be, and I'm not here to tell people how to do, but that God saw all of this, and she's not going to allow but a humble amount of time for that. And the question is, what are we going to do to replace it?
And so does black still exist without white supremacy?
Yeah, black.
Does black still exist? Since it was kind of created as a term, a social construct for white supremacy to thrive.
Black doesn't even have to exist after that. Black is inclusive. It's not exclusive. We don't say, even with I love black people, it doesn't say I love black people only.
Right.
But when people interject the white supremacist model, they literally are trying to figure out a way to keep people out. We're the
Absolutely, which is why they're so fearful. When we say we love black people, they hear a threat. Because when they say I love white people, that is attached to white supremacy, and it is a completely different term. I don't think that we say I love black people as a term of power. We want to take over the world.
Well, I say it as a word of power. It's very
empowering to us,
and
but not powering to take over other people.
I want to take over the world. So
but you just said it's not exclusive.
Me taking over the world don't have to exclude nobody.
Okay, all right.
Don't be mad at everybody in that same world. That's what you're saying.
Right, everybody. and that's the thing that's so beautiful. As we've circumnavigated the world prior to the colonial model.
Right.
So when you see countries like Melanesia,
right, exactly.
Like, so even with Tyreek, and again, Tyreek's, I love the brother, so I don't do the funny style with this. Yeah. But I will also say that because of the nature of our people, we were able to travel and go to other parts of the world, including the Americas, and not colonize. We could actually do exchanges of all kinds of things, stay a while.
Absolutely.
But we didn't, and it's almost like how you look at African religious or spirituality versus these constructs that are more political than spiritual, like these so-called religions. Like spirituality, you look at the people in the Americas or Africa, you don't proselytize. When I say my great-great-grandmama died for me, she literally died for me. She died and gave me her DNA. I don't have to go to Bethlehem to talk about somebody who died for me way over there, because there's literally somebody, and I can't tell you how to honor your great-great-grandmama. So there's I'm not gonna say it's very personal, but it's an intimate way of having a spirituality. So if you look at, be it the Mayans, when I was in Peru, first time I had been in Peru, my wife's father had passed, and I surprised her. She wanted to go see them colorful mountains.
Yes.
And they would try to say the Mayans was throwing their virgin children in the dang volcanoes. Now these are the same people who developed calendars. Right. Now, meaning tracking celestial bodies, understanding how the tide. Like, you're gonna tell me the same person that can actually develop a dang calendar that actually was very accurate, at the same time thought they had to throw a virgin in a volcano? So what we say is that maybe it's just like what they did with the weapons of mass destruction. Colonialists, colonized imperialists have been lying the whole time. So they invaded Iraq because they wanted the oil, and they wanted to control those resources, not because of weapons of mass destruction.
Of course.
When they invaded these places in Central America, Africa, anywhere in Asia, they didn't want, these folks weren't savages. They were very civilized. If they had been savages, they would have killed the colonizers, because a lot of these colonizers were lost. They were literally lost at sea. They were hungry.
Just like the United
They were
States.
thirsty, and they killed. And then they came up with this book called *Sapiens*, where this dude was trying to justify colonialism. And the Native Americans here, the so-called Native Americans, to show you how people don't eat each other. When the Europeans was about to die, another people who had nothing to identify with these folks literally saved those people, helped them through the winter, taught them how to eat, taught them how to do everything. And these savages, killed them.
Right.
To stab them in the back. To your question though, Randy, will blackness exist after the fall of white supremacy? I think yes. And I think it would exist for a particular subset of people who don't know their name otherwise. To your point that you were saying a second ago, you said that when white supremacy falls, what will be then? I think black folks, especially well, I only know black Americans. You're going to have to take me places, brother, so I can see other things. But I know for black Americans, we have been developing systems of survival, not only in response to white supremacy, but also just in response to the development of our own culture. But we don't have another name otherwise.
Right.
So when whiteness falls, we will still just be black folks. Black people created hip hop. That blackness to that point will become real. This construct is already culture, so therefore I think it is already a thing that is concrete. I don't think when white people fall, we get a different name.
I hang on to blackness and being black so tightly that I would actually, I would actually lose my footing, right?
Let me
to
say,
be honest,
but I think
blackness in the way I see it, not in the way that some people try to cast it.
Well, I'm just, humbly, I would say this though. I think to the construct as a reaction to something else, I can't disagree, but I want to be very clear because this is a part that we sometimes don't get. Names are not arbitrary.
No, exactly.
So when I first
black is very intentional. I agree with you.
No, but here's my point. Because there's some specificity that we don't have because we use general terms. When I went to Senegal for the first time, and I told the brother my name was Sinclair, and he said, "What does it mean?" I said, "It's just a name." I thought he was smart with me, so I was trying to be like, "My name's Sinclair." So in their culture, the name, they said, "I don't care how rich or poor your family is. The one thing they're going to be able to give you that you'll have your entire life, not a bicycle or toy, is a name."
Yes.
It should mean something.
Yes. That's in a lot of cultures.
So when you start looking at that like that, even when you see how late Europeans are to civilization, in Zimbabwe, they have totems. So your name is connected to like an animal totem. And within that totem, there's a bunch of like branches, but you can't marry someone in your totem. You have to marry someone outside, a stranger, if you will, of another totem. If you look at the naming or how Europeans presented themselves, we'll say names like Leonardo da Vinci.
Sure.
So Leonardo da Vinci really is not a name. That's really Leonard of Vinci. If he moved to Rome, he would have been Leonardo de Roma.
Right.
So when you look at Europeans and they have their name as Fletcher or Thatcher or Smith, those aren't really proper nomenclature. Because their societies was very primitive, they literally took vocations and inserted them in their names.
Absolutely.
So, or even when you look at the Bible and how it's been tampered with, you got all these folks with like first names and no surnames. There's nowhere in the world that exists, but in a European construct. Everybody has something that directly ties them to.
Help me understand, like, how does that go back to, like, if we're still black?
Because we're using things that people don't. In truth, someone says, "I'm Shona." And in truth, they'll even tell you their totem. Because they want you to know, like in my totem, if you're like a cow totem, they don't eat cows.
Right.
If they're a pig totem, they don't eat pigs.
Okay.
They give you their name, like they don't even give you high level. They don't say Zimbabwe.
Right.
They go straight to something that's going to let you know my family.
Okay.
So my point is,
so you see that happening.
I see that in. Okay.
I hear you, but there's a tinge of privilege in what you're saying just now.
Okay.
I don't think. And I don't want to speak for most black folks, but I'll just speak for myself. I have not entered a position in my life where I have trusted an institution or have the resource to actually find out what my name is.
Right.
And I don't
That's
think
most people.
And I don't think a lot of people will get to that opportunity. I would love for it to happen. That's why like that black thing is so real for a very specific subset of people within the diaspora. That thing will exist after the fall of whiteness unless the fall of whiteness includes your original papers, which I don't know if that's what comes with it.
But that's what I'm saying. I think people need a place
I'm not
to
disagreeing.
attach to.
I'm not disagreeing, but I think it goes back to the running to and from. Listen, I'm going to change my name. Okay, I'm not a Skinner. When you look at me, I go anywhere in the world and say Skinner. I don't look like a Skinner. Right. It's really a fraud. Right. People look at you and laugh in themselves. Right. You call yourself Rodriguez. Rodriguez is a name from Spain. Right. That means my people owned you. Right. And you might love being called Rodriguez, but be clear in the family of people, what you are literally saying is my people owned you. Now, there's going to come a time, not for everyone now, that you're going to get tired of naming your children after the people that raped, killed,
Oh,
and stole.
absolutely. I think about it all the time.
So if you get out of prison, you don't keep your prison number and walk around with it. Some people might do that.
That's a really good
But
point.
literally, once you're liberated, liberated people act like they're liberated. The trick that we're in, there's a perception, but the reality is we still in minimum security. So people are afraid. If my last name is Smith, I'm not going to change my name to Oyoyo because you know what? I'm not Oyoyo. But you're not Smith. So let's be clear.
Definitely not Smith.
Let's be clear. That's not true.
Right.
When my dad tells me he don't want me to change my name, I said, Dad, we're not disrespecting our great grand. He went from being Brown plantation to the Smith plantation back to the Jenkins plantation.
Right.
Like, for us to hold on to something that we just had for 150 years, like it's so precious. It's bizarre. Not bizarre.
Right.
No, it's not bizarre.
It's not bizarre.
It's in the space that you just said. But once white supremacy is destroyed, because they're going to destroy it, I think, again, this is going back to my optimism, I think we will, of course, the last person who was kind of holding on to Jenkins, because they identified with it, once the last Jenkins is gone, when those folks leave, he going to call himself whatever he want to call. And it could be Jenkins, but I'm telling you, once we get super free, we're literally
He's going to live as a free person.
We're not looking at the white folks'
so
gaze.
incredibly
Like
true.
literally, I get free. I might call myself 3.
So you remember the spelling bee champion? Her name was Avant Garde. That's not their name. That's their father created that name to create a new legacy. So we understand that there is.
That's what I'm saying. We're not going to keep this.
Now, see, you talking to Marcus Garvey point. There is a point that we can depart, but some people will choose not to.
No, I don't think it's
like.
that.
Hold on, one second. Because like there is. I told you I'm a descendant of McLeod Bethune. So there is, and those aren't her names. So there is a connection to something that is positive, that is beautiful, that is beyond captivity. And the reason why
all you know and all you're familiar with.
Exactly.
Right.
And the reason why I feel like the word black is so, this is where I thought you were going. I thought you were going with the specific of the word black being the opposite of pure, the anti, the underclass, whatever it is. The reason why I feel like black folks still use nigga, the reason why black folks still call each other black is because there is, and I know it's corny to say, but there is a power in the reclamation of post-enslavement. There is a power in recognizing that, yeah, I was owned by the Browns, but now I'm not. And now my family name is more so on my morning show. It's more so on my children. It's more so on the lines of deacons that have come behind me. You used the Brown name before that, so I'm a little offended right now.
Well, that
I'm just playing.
That actually is like interesting that you say that because I was married, last name was Eigenbrod, and I had 2, from Eigenbrod, you talk about how it comes from work. It was Eigenbrod, those were the bread makers in Austria, right? And so my son's last name is Eigenbrod. It's a big white family, right?
Yeah.
And there is some satisfaction, because they have the big Eigenbrod, that I had these 2 black boys named Eigenbrod. And I'm like, if they were to have 5 kids each, I mean, these black ass kids with the last name Eigenbrod is pretty like, dope, but that's not freedom though. I'm hearing what you're saying, but I'm hearing what you're saying too.
I mean, what I'm saying is freedom to me is we've made it to the point where we can have the choice without the fear of persecution or physical harm. That we can come to the point of, do you want to keep Brown?
Or being able to get a job.
Huh?
Yeah,
or to the guy, do you want to keep your name?
Right.
Do you know who you are, and do you want to keep your name afterwards?
I think that's the issue. I think you could name yourself 3, but let me just, I'm also saying something that also, almost every place in the world where people still don't still live under the yoke of their colonial master, their names actually mean something.
Absolutely.
Like, we just got to be clear.
And we
Brown is some arbitrary, I was owned by.
Right.
And then when we adopt it, I don't think it's, again, to have our children being murdered every day and to get on semantics of names, I'm not going to do that because there's some real issues going on. And that part, I'm not, but I'm saying if we're going to have the conversation, I'm just saying.
But it still is about mindset, which I think is pretty powerful.
It's mindset. I'm just saying, but it's all like priority-wise, we got to protect our children from getting murdered by the police and everybody else. The name part, I'm just saying, if white supremacy is destroyed, all these folks are gone. When I hear somebody tell me that I can trace my ancestor through DNA, I have done it. My daddy's dark skin, my mom's light skin. I did my dad first. So for whatever, I still gotta get my mom. So my point is, I definitely see the fact that if someone says I'm from this region of Africa,
Yes.
I think that's fair. But what was the bigger crime, and I'm a reparationist, give me my cash payment.
Facts.
But one of the bigger crimes was the Control Alt Delete. Because my great grandmother wasn't some region in Africa. She was literally a real person. And I used to get a little melancholy about it. I used to, when I was going to different places and traveling and whatnot, the fact that I don't know who my great grandmother, but for some DNA tests. But she laughed at certain things. There was things she enjoyed.
Yeah.
And this white supremacist system destroyed my connection to it.
Yeah.
So even when we talk about Brown, Jenkins, I know my great grandmother refused to surrender and had babies,
Absolutely.
not for me to keep the name of a goddamn slave master. My great grandmother did everything she did so that one day that her son would figure this stuff out and take his black behind back and claim what is actually theirs. We're claiming something in a place that's full of the blood of another people. There's nothing honorable about that to me.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm not gonna like giggle. Whatever God saw what was done here, for me to wanna be under that yoke and be praising and lifting that sickness up,
And then
please.
putting it on
I'm
camera
not
and
with
having-
that.
Hold up now. Hold up
But let me
now.
give you but let me give you this is what I was listening for. But I don't think we're cursed either. We're not cursed to live here.
Yeah.
We're not cursed to live there. I have a home in Zimbabwe. I have a home in the so-called Dominican Republic, and I got homes in so-called United States. I want to live wherever I choose to. I'm not gonna. Colonialism is what stopped us from being able to move. When they put these fictitious borders and said this is the United States, that is another lie construct to harm us. I live wherever I choose to. And if anybody want to come to America and get an American passport, I wish I could give everybody one.
And so when you do that, you're doing that as a black man?
I think my humanity is tied to my blackness, but I'm very clear that whatever someone calls themselves, because of who I am, is why I'm open to it. The whole black experience has been so, again, we have primacy. These literally are all our children. I'm not trying to take it too weird. So I don't get Asian, whatever. I love hearing some Mandarin or whatever that is. But I'm very secure in my identity as a black person, as a person of African descent. The journey that stops here, there, and there is just a part, but 10,000 years living in Africa versus 300 here, I'm clear. I'm not confused that what makes me has been shaped by 300 years. But what we've contributed, what we've done was 10,000 years.
So maybe it's broadening the idea of what blackness is. More so than...
Again, I said 1.5, the same size as China are the people of African descent. Europeans who call themselves European are less than maybe 600 million. So they're literally, and they're recessive. There's a whole bunch of reasons what they're doing is problematic. They're going to lose. But I'm sorry, what was the thing?
I forgot. I would like to say that everything that has happened here under America, under the Black American control, is not something that I'm absolutely willing to run away from. Like there are the blues, there's R&B, there is 112. Those things to me are very specific to the Black American experience. And this is why I keep telling you, I ain't been nowhere, so maybe you got to take me somewhere. And as you're talking, you put it in a very good term. I get 10,000 years over here where I have contributed, my bloodline has contributed to the things that have happened on this planet. Then I have 300 years in this place that has happened after a very traumatic
But I think this makes a very good
But I think
point.
it's both. I think what you're saying, I'm not agreeing. I'm just saying it's a spectrum of it.
Right, and what I was saying is there needs to be some type of, in order for us to even get to the choice of do I want to leave Black, there has to be some type of trusted system that connects me back to what I was. And
that could even be education, which is why I truly believe that there's a lot of strategery and why people don't want us to learn our history.
Right, that's what
also don't want to spit in the tube.
But hold on.
Right.
Like this is what I told you. I said I thought this question was simple when I first, wrote it.
Oh, this is a hard ass question.
But it's a really hard ass question. I want to wrap up. And I don't even know if it's possible. This is your clip. You know, when I do my little social media, your clip that's gonna pop out.
Yes, ma'am.
If I had to say, get it right.
Okay.
Right? This is your clip. If you had to sum it up. And I said, what is black? What is black? Just give me your little 30-second, your 30-second, 45-second thing. I know it's hard.
I'll go first because you went first last time.
Humbly.
All right. I would say black is a diasporic intergenerational conversation that identifies a group of individuals who have been separated from their original prominence, from the African, from the sub-Saharan region, people who look like us, people who have these melanin tones. And it is also a culture that you have to actively participate and know about. That's my opinion.
Boom. I like it. What is black?
The more than 1.5 billion people of African descent.
That's beautiful. I want to thank y'all. Thank you, BMO.
No problem.
Thank you, Sinclair. And whenever you change your name to for Truth and
Yeah,
with
come on,
me.
man.
This
Sinclair
meant
what?
a lot.
Give me a preview.
Moyo. It's going to be heart. Moyo means heart in Shona, the Bele, and even in Swahili, which is really not it's an amalgamation of language. Yep. Moyo means heart.
Moyo. That's beautiful.
Heart.
Moyo. That's beautiful.
Yeah,
Thank
humbly.
you for that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
From all my Moyo. My Moyo to yours. Thank you so much.
What did they do?
Yeah.
Humbly.